Forget. Okay. Welcome everyone to April's. Can you believe it? We are in April already. April's community meeting for Monroe Equity Council. I am Melanie Ryan. I am on the board of the Monroe Equity Council. Other board members here tonight are Bridget Tuttle and Peggy Ray, or Margaret Ray, as you can see by her name on her screen. We have a couple new faces here tonight, so that's great as well. So welcome, we're really excited to have you. I will introduce Liz shortly, who's going to kick off our meeting tonight, and we're super excited to have her as well. But we do kick off with a few things administratively, so let us do that. You all can see my screen? Yeah, okay. And here we go. So we as a community have agreements, and this is just a way to really build inclusion so that everyone feels like they belong and are heard. We like to go over these in every meeting. So for those who are new, you're introduced to these agreements. And for those of us who attend every time, it's a reminder for us as we move into engaging with each other tonight. So making a habit of asking questions, really bringing that curiosity and asking questions in a way that rather than defending our positions that we already hold, we're being curious about where someone else is coming from, what they might be able to teach us. So making that habit of asking questions. Consider having coffee with someone as a follow-up to get to know people. We're talking about building community tonight, and share your thoughts. Be open to feedback about something that, maybe could help you grow and learn. Examining our assumptions and biases. We all have them. We all have them. I do this work for a living as well. I have that. We all got them. If you have a strong reaction, pause and ask yourself why. That's often a clue to our biases, or it's a clue to something that maybe is unresolved in us. Sometimes it's really because someone did something kind of crappy, but a lot of times it's our own place of starting our self-reflection. So we try to do that work here. And then seek to understand, similar to the first one of asking questions, refrain from confirmation bias, where we look for information to confirm what we already believe, and looking to defend a pre-existing opinion. So that's how we're imperfect humans and we mess up sometimes too, but this is the work that we're doing to build our community. Okay, does anyone want to volunteer and read the land acknowledgement tonight? Cindy? All right.
Land acknowledgement. We honor the indigenous people upon whose land we stand, the Snohomish, the Skykomish, the Tulalip, and the Coast Salish. We recognize and respect them as the traditional stewards of this land and acknowledge the enduring relationship that exists between indigenous people and their colonized territories.
And in order to make this more than just words that we say, there's a few things we really would like to bring to the community around kind of our growing and learning and action around Indigenous communities and rights. As one is, we really want to bring more Indigenous learning and content to our platforms. Is this an area that you feel you have awareness, or you are Indigenous and you'd like to, help us build that content and learning and education, please do let us know. There's also places locally, the Duwamish tribe is one of them, where you can pay rent for the land that we are working on. And if you have other ideas, let us know as well, because we do want this to be more meaningful than just words, but also really start to build an awareness of, we are working and living on land that we didn't gain on our own. It's stolen land. So that is why we start with this particular acknowledgement. And with that, I'm so excited to bring two worlds together. So Liz is not a random speaker in terms of, we just found her. Liz is someone I know really well. Liz has many things that I will allow her to share with you and do her own introduction of herself. But I do know Liz from a mutual friend and colleague. that I do work with. And through that introduction, Liz is just a phenomenal and valued member of the advisory board for my business. And we do coaching and facilitation work around culture development and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when we started thinking about building community, that is Liz's superpower. I mean, this is who she is. Liz has this natural affinity for people. She has this natural affinity for bringing people together and for bringing people together to move them towards common goals and causes while uniquely appreciating people's individual differences. She is passionate. She is fun. If you missed the disco ball conversation in the middle, we'll get to that information. And she is just a phenomenal human being. And I'm excited for her to share and kick us off tonight. So she's going to kick us off with some words. We're going to do some Q&A, and then we're going to move into kind of taking that message and working on continuing to build our community right here in Monroe. So Liz, with that, I'm going to give you the floor.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction, Melanie. That was phenomenal. I need to write that down for my bios in the future. And thank you all so much for having me here. Building community is something that I am so passionate about. And when we're done with this, I promise you that little cottage in the UK, everybody's going to be invited. So that's what I do. Wherever I go, I build community, I make friends. I'm currently reading a book called The Book of Joy with the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. And I just want to read a quote that really struck to me yesterday. And it said, wherever you have friends, that's your country. And wherever you receive love, that's your home. And I thought that was so powerful. And it was definitely something that I'm very passionate about, especially when it comes to building community. So thank you for that. I am a mom. I have All right. Can you hear me? Sorry, I thought I got muted. So I have two boys. I'm a mom. I have my own business. I work with Melanie, and I'm a proud Latina. I'm from Houston, Texas, and how I find joy and happiness in my life is one, through dance parties, as Kim knows now about my dance parties and my disco balls. And I love affirmations and gratitude. So that's kind of how I find my grounding on every day. When Melanie first approached me to do this talk and talk about building community, I said, yes, I love it. And I went straight onto the Monroe Equity Council website, and I saw that your mission spoke a lot about leading with love, equity, respect, compassion, and justice. And by definition, building community is having that sense of connectedness, having respect for one another, and where every member of that community feels like they can bring their authentic self. And in communities, your members take care of communities, and in return, communities take care of the members, so that you can have this collective success in whatever you're trying to do. Building communities, it takes work. It takes intention, patience, and everybody leaning in. And it also takes a very good understanding and regard for diversity, equity, and inclusion. We can't have one without the other. So having an understanding of DEI is so critical for building communities. It's the foundation of it. It's how we create those brave spaces where every voice is heard. So why is it so important? Why can't I just be solo, right? It's important for our well-being. As we're coming off of a pandemic, and we've been siloed in our homes a lot. And depression is up, anxiety is up, all these elements are up, and what we need is community. So in essence, community is critical for our own well-being and the well-being of our community. It promotes high levels of trust and psychological safety, because every person in the community feels like they belong, they can bring their authentic self. You in turn have high trust and psychological safety. When you're part of a community and you feel connected to that, you also have a sense of purpose. Communities are always evolving, therefore they embrace, and this is the one that I really love because I'm a disruptor in most of my communities, meaning I always question things. They embrace risk takers, creativity, innovation. And another great thing about having a community is a community actually embraces conflict and diversity. There's a very special growth that you have, and a learning and growth when you as you work through differences of opinion and making spaces for better understanding, and that creates such a strong community. And I want to take a little time to talk about conflict, make you a little uncomfortable, right? I know most of us don't want to have conflict. We don't want to fight, right? But conflict is dynamic. It's always evolving. I know from, reading a little bit about Monroe, there's been a lot of racial injustices, especially in schools. And so, as we combine our communities, expand our communities, people moving around the world, I'm moving over to the UK, right? And I come from I'm first generation American, and now I'm moving over to the UK. I'm going to have a little shock to my system from a culture perspective, and in return, my surrounding community will as well, because I am a very proud Latina, and so I will bring my bright colors and my music and and everything that embodies, most Latin families. So it's inevitable to have conflict. It's what we do to work through that conflict. And there is conflict that goes beyond individual differences. It's sometimes it's where we have to go and change that system that supported that division. And how do we do that? How do we go and figure this out? And why is it important? When you actually do the work to resolve conflict, and you acknowledge that there is an issue, right? We're being honest of where our position is at, and it's sometimes going to be uncomfortable. We have a reconciliation plan. We have this vision and this strategy to transform our conflict. And what that does is, it strengthens the ability to value one another. It builds alliances, and it creates this common ground when we do the work of resolving conflict. And I do love talking about conflict and transforming conflict. So we may be doing another one about that. But what I will say is, with that, transforming that conflict, like I said earlier, it takes time, patience, humility, long-term commitment, a willingness to trust. And this is going to be hard, because it's hard for me. Absolutely. I do not like making mistakes, but being okay with making mistakes and acknowledging, you know what, I made a mistake, and it's okay. We all have that fear of failure, right? So that's a little bit of conflict, and, why is community so important? What is community? And the one thing about community, and feel free to stop me if y'all have questions. I'm looking at the chat as well too, so please feel free to ask anything. I'm open to it. One of the things about communities that I mentioned earlier is our individual superpowers. I was made aware, not made aware, but I realized what my superpower was when I was 16 years old. And I put together this group called Alma Latina. Again, we're gonna talk about dance parties here. So this was a this is a group of high schoolers, and our parents were they're blue collared workers. You know, my parents worked multiple jobs to support our family. And many of us were like this. We all came from very diverse backgrounds. We had Latinos, we had black kids, we had Asian, we had Indian, white, we had all these diverse. Houston is a very diverse city. And we were all staying late because our parents were working, and school let out at 4:30 and we were there until 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night, you know, hoping that, you know, we don't get into the things that normal 16-year-olds get into. And what we did is we said, hey, we like music. We like to dance. Let's bring a boom box. That's right. We brought boom boxes. Okay. This was 1999. So Party Like We 1999. So we brought a boom box in. We created this group. We found allies to support our group. And we created this thriving community of kids that just wanted to dance. They wanted to stay out of trouble. And we respected our superpowers, our individualism as well too. But we were all together as a common, and that group, that kept me going all through high school. And it was my saving grace in high school. So I want to push it out on you all and think about your superpower. I know many of us think about our weaknesses and what we need to do to fix our weaknesses, and we tend to focus a lot on those. And I want to kind of change your mindset a little bit, and let's think about our superpowers. Unless your weakness is compassion or empathy, which I don't think that is here in this group. So I want you to think about your superpower. And if somebody wants to either unmute themselves, or if they want to add it onto chat, add in your superpower. Well, I want you to be thinking about that, because it's really important to bring in that superpower, that strength into your community. Because within communities, every person knows what value they add to the community.
Hey, Liz.
Go ahead, Melanie.
Bridget put in the chat that she loves building community too. And I want to call that out, because that is one of Bridget's superpowers. I know a lot of people in this chat, and I want to do a secondary push for you and just see if we can get a couple more people to kind of talk about their superpowers, because I could brag about a few people, but and there's some people that are new to me, and I'd love to hear what your superpowers are in building community. Cindy Ladd, I'm looking at you.
Well, I could see Peggy smiling as well too. So I think I know what her superpower is, but I'd like her to tell me a little bit about her superpower, because she's smiling a lot. Cindy put in their music.
Peggy, you're on mute.
I think it's organizing a lot of information, pulling it together, way that makes it simple and sense.
That's amazing. Thank you, Peggy, for sharing that.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that's an interesting thing to think about, like, what is your superpower? And that's something that I am trying to work on. It's like all of these good qualities that I have, it's like, and like energies, and how can I focus it? But I think your point about focusing on your superpower rather than like your faults is really, that's a really empowering thing too, because that really keeps people motivated, is seeing the good that you can do rather than seeing like what you're lacking. Seeing all the things that you're capable of just make you capable of more things. Because I mean, and that's how, in a different way, like I've been through this fitness battle with my life and stuff, and I'm finally getting to a point where it's like, it's sticking because I'm doing it out of love and respect for myself rather than out of hate and disgust and punishment. And that's keeping things motivated. So that's like, duh, everyone knows, like, keep a positive attitude. But that's, I think it's just a really good point, and that's all I wanted to say.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, when I learned that for myself on focusing on my strengths, there are things that I'm bad at, right? And when I say, and I think we tend to focus a lot about on our weaknesses, but you know, like I said earlier, if your weakness is compassion and empathy, okay, let's work on those. But let's work on your strengths, because I don't think we celebrate ourselves often. And that's beautiful that you did that, right? I'm working on myself, I'm working on my body because I love it, because it's a temple, because it's important to me, and it's good for my mental health.
And because you can't live your life without your body. I mean, like, it's the vessel that gets you through and you're able to have all these good experiences and even feel love and companionship and be around all the people you love and see the things that you do, because your body physically gets you through the world. So it's nice to respect that too.
Awesome. But thank you for sharing that. Okay, I have Lisa. My superpower is advocacy and engagement. I'm also a former dancer. So I guess the next Monroe meeting will be a dance party, Melanie?
Yeah. So
yeah.
Absolutely.
I've seen Lisa dance. So I'm writing her in a chat, and I was going to say, Lisa, your advocacy is something I learn from every day. I tried to learn dancing from you, and I don't. She is amazing. She danced at Juneteenth last year. Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make a trip up there, Melanie.
No, I was a dancer all through growing up from age 5 to 21, and go back to it when I can, but you know about all my injuries and stuff, but I cannot sit still to music.
Both Lisa and Cindy at Juneteenth last year with the dancing, like, they just got up there and were so brave, and then it just brought other people up there to do it too. So again, using those superpowers to kind of bring people together and connect. Oh, Mary, that is your superpower.
Finding out what I can do to help others. Oh, look, they're coming in. Thanks, Melanie, for that. That's amazing. Cutting the crap and getting to the point. Yes, direct. Thank you, Kim.
I love that about Kim. Like, if I go to Kim, I know Kim is just going to tell me. Like, I don't have to dance around and do that. And it's just amazing. What did Sarah say? Truth. Oh my God. Like, people are saying this, and I love it because I'm so excited, because it is. Sarah's one of our school board directors, and like, her ability to just, bring this integrity and honesty to the table is just amazing. Oh, and Sarah, she really is one of the most understanding, peaceful, bringing together people. Like, I love this. This is just making my heart sing, because people are not just identifying things of their strengths, but I can see how these strengths really are happening in the community and bringing people together. Thanks for doing this, Liz. I love it.
No, this is amazing. This is making me super happy. And, as a leader, as, the Monroe Council as a leader, utilizing these superpowers, right? The individual superpowers to create this amazing superhero of a community. Like, how incredible is that? So thank you all for doing this. And I love the peaceful vibes. I love all the great vibes, only good vibes, right? That's amazing. So how do we create, well, now that we know how to create our community, we know why it's important. We know how to talk about conflict. How do you maintain it? how do you make it sustainable? Because we know that conflict's evolving. We know that it's dynamic. So our communities need to shift to allow all these changes. One is building your social capital, continuing to go out and building your circles. You have your little circles, you got your big circle. If y'all don't see this, I wear hoop earrings a lot. So circles are very, very important to me. And sometimes connecting those circles, you know, Melanie just did this amazing thing. You are all now family to me. So, you know, she's connected her two circles together. That's so important. And our other advisor member for MFR, her name is Shara. Her superpower is connecting the right people together, right? She's like, oh, I know you and I know your superpower. I know you and I know your superpower. Y'all need to meet together. So having those circle connections is really important. Keeping in touch, investing time and energy within your network, within your circle, within your community, even if it's small, even if it's 3, you know, I'll use this because I can relate to this. Moms who have two partners that work, right? So my husband and I both have very demanding jobs, and I have this group of girlfriends, and we don't meet every day, but we have a WhatsApp group, or every now and then we have a wine Wednesday, and just go out and have some wine and invest and put some energy into our relationships and thinking, okay, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna do this with our kids. And one of the big thing, and who's the one that said that they had a lot of, Sarah, your compassion. This is where your superpower is going to highlight. Compassion is so critical when creating a sustainable community. The Journal of Neuroscience published, and I can put this on the chat as well, because it's a very interesting read. And they found out that when people consider others, they actually make better decisions. And I think as a community, and Peggy, you're shaking your head and she's writing something down. She's organizing over there. I love it. We sometimes get a little distracted and we look a lot inwardly, right? In ourselves. How much money can I make? You know, what can I do here? What can I, you know, me. But when we consider other people, and it almost like puts things into perspective. I'll share a very personal story. I know we're kind of running out of time here, but my sister-in-law, we just found out that she has breast cancer and it's triple negative. And it threw our family circle, as you can imagine, just out of whack, right? And we were all just kind of, we didn't know how to deal with this grief that each one of us was feeling, because each one of us has a very beautiful relationship with my sister-in-law. She has 2 young kids, and as a mother with 2 young kids, you know, I put myself in her position. And so then I took a step back and we had a meeting, a family meeting, and I said, okay, I'm a community builder. We're going to get all this through together, and we're going to rely on each of our individual strengths. And we're going to stop thinking about ourselves and stop thinking about our own grief and think about, okay, what does Elaine, my sister-in-law, need from us in this very moment? And that just put all these puzzle pieces together. And now each one of us, even from here, from being in the States and they're over in the UK, we're able to still be part of her community and helping her get through this every week. So you know that I send her weekly songs of the days before her treatments. And the other thing from a sustainability is remembering progress over perfection. We're not perfect. Who wants to be perfect? I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I am proud that I'm no longer wanting to be perfect. I am a work in progress, and I love it because I'm growing every day. And then as leaders in the community, one, recognizing the hard work that your community's putting in, and then also holding performance accountable. So that's pretty much what I have for building a community. I want to open it up to any questions that people may have. Oh, Heidi, thank you for sharing that.
By holding performance accountable, what do you mean by that? By like making sure you're creating goals and achieving them, or can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so no, great question. Thank you for asking that. So when you hold somebody accountable, you know, and this is what I love. So I'm a coach. And one of the things that I do with my clients is we co-create a plan. And one of the questions I love asking my clients is, how are you going to hold yourself accountable? And also, what do you need from me to hold you accountable? Or who are your accountability partners? So when I say holding performance accountable is, as a community, we have this goal. This is what we want to achieve. This is our mission. These are our values. And as leaders in that community, how do we hold that value or that goal and to hold the community members accountable to that? Okay, thank you. Oh, go ahead. You had another question? Nope.
I was going to say the progress over perfection. It's just it's something that people always forget, but that's why we have the phrase baby steps. You know, it's baby steps. You can always, it's better than nothing for sure. So and everything will always be a work in progress because there is no such thing as perfection. Really, it'll always be growing. So to stop expecting perfection is probably a really good place to start, and just expect growth and progress.
How do you climb a mountain? One step at a time, right? Oh.
Do we have any other questions or comments for Liz? Be quiet. We got all the energy out on the superpowers.
Of course, I love that.
Okay, I'm going to ask them some questions next too. So, Liz, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. You are welcome to leave. You do not have to feel pressured to stay. I know we are a couple hours ahead. I do want to deeply thank you. You know, just the energy of which kicking off the rest of this meeting with, you know, to your point, you know, it's been a long 2 years, over 2 years, and I just see the exhaustion and I see the stress and, you know, of so many people. And when we do that, it's really easy, like you said, to pull inwards. But our community, yeah, I think the most powerful thing, I wrote it down, I put it in the chat, is probably going to go on social media. Members take care of their communities and communities take care of their members. So when we pull out, we're not allowing the community to take care of us. And we're not putting into the community to keep it healthy. And so I'm really excited for the rest of this discussion on, you know, what we can do as a group here today to think about moving forward and, you know, coming together in a way that really energizes us individually and collectively. So thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, and thank you all for the wonderful comments on the chat. I almost don't want to leave, so I might stay just for a little bit longer. Then I got to put my kiddos to bed.
Awesome, great. Okay, everyone. So I want to look. We're going to move forward, and we're going to talk about, well, where do we go from here? So we're going to talk a little bit about what does building in community in Monroe. We're going to talk about the Monroe Equity Council, and you know, many of you are new, so we'll talk a little bit more about what that mission and vision of ours have been, some of what we've been doing, and what do we need to do now, and where do we need help, and how can you plug in? That's a very high level kind of where do we go from here. So I know talking sometimes feels a little vulnerable and so on and so forth. But again, you know, if we want to be a community, like we should have a drinking game or something, or hashtags on how many times we say community. But you know, to reiterate that, it needs to be all of us. It needs to be all of our voices. And so we're going to ask everyone to be a little vulnerable here and speak up. But when we bring this back to Monroe, you know, thinking of where we've been, where we are, and where we want to be, what does building community look in Monroe look like to you?
Is that a question for all of us to answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, first of all, just it's really amazing that this group exists. We're both from a really small town in Eastern Washington, and it's not, this kind of like discussion is not really had around like even having, you know, like, I mean, Black Lives Matter and things like that. It's a small rural community that doesn't have a lot of diversity. That things like this would be a really hard sell to get any sort of community together. So I think it's really inspiring what you're doing here. It feels really good to be here. I'm so glad I moved to Monroe. Want to
Me
say
too.
that? Yeah, just so glad. And yeah, part of Monroe, it's so funny that we're talking about dance and music and all of that. Because we sort of jokingly, sort of not talk about like a dance club, like a disco in Monroe, which is a place where there's one in Seattle, Supernova Seattle, and it's very like LGBTQ friendly, and it's just a really different vibe. I've never experienced anything like that. Like I'm saying, I'm from the small town, and so some more like fun things in Monroe to do that are very inclusive of all the different communities, where people can just go and have fun together, is something that I could really see happening. And like in the downtown area, because it's so cute, I really like it. It's very walkable and fun to have fun things like that to do.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Other thoughts?
Well, I would second that, first of all. I'm Lisa. I mean, I'm all about the events. I love events. I love cultural events. I love LGBTQ events. I would love dance parties. I would even love some line dancing that was like inclusive of everyone. And I mean, you know, the more we get to see different cultures, I mean, I would love to celebrate all the holidays we can, or, you know, all the cultures we can in this community. I come from Southern California, and one thing we used to go to every year was a cultural fair in LA. And you can imagine they had the native dancers, and they had the Chinese dancers, and Hawaiian, and you know, African. And it was just the most beautiful thing every year to see everyone just enjoying and embracing all that the community had to offer. So I would love to help with any of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. What else?
This isn't the first time that idea has been brought up. I know last year, I think it was right after our first Monroe Pride event, one of the co-chairs for one of the committees for the Pride event contacted some of us. Bridget, I know she contacted you for one as well, about the possibility of finding a place that we would somehow be able to transform into a place for like 14 to 18-year-olds to hang out and have fun, something for the youth. If there was a space available for something like a disco and have different nights for different groups, have something for a teen night and you know, line dancing, pride night, you know, it would be a really neat thing, I think, for our community if we could start keeping an eye open for something that we could utilize to make that happen.
Thank you, Cindy. Kim writes in the chat about being a part of a volunteer group, a group that does volunteer work in the community. That's another thing we've heard before too. And doing volunteer work, standing side by side with people who may be different than you in whatever number of ways we can be different from each other, is really a way to build, an inclusive culture and a community together. I like that idea as well. Lisa says yes. Anything else before I move on? I want to make sure I capture Adopt a Highway. I want to make sure I capture.
Say, and from personal experience, building people's sort of civic and potentially political engagement, supporting people in those roles as they move into leadership. It's a hard thing to do on your own, and you need people behind you. So I think finding ways to support each other in that would be cool.
I love that, Sarah. As MEC, as an organization, we have some lines as a nonprofit about endorsing candidates, but I think too, we shouldn't be having a discussion just as far as MEC goes. We should just be having a discussion as far as the community goes. And there's also there's things we can do, like get out the vote, and things that we can do to have, in elections, to be able to have meet the candidates type of thing with all candidates in a way that is respectful and shows that, we can have dialogues that are respectful and that type of thing as well. So, there's ways we can think about doing that. Nisha brings up another volunteer opportunity, like growing vegetables for the food bank garden. So there's some volunteer stuff. So I love this. So I'm gonna move on. You keep putting things in the chat because we'll save the chat too. So if ideas pop up, just throw them in the chat. And Bridget too, if you can help me monitor chat, or Peggy will, I keep going through. So I want to just transition really quick to make sure, because one thing we really focus on is when we're making decisions, when we're planning an event, when we're building a program, we always come back to our vision and mission. And we say, are we aligned with what our vision and mission are? Is this decision in line with our vision and mission? We're very focused, because it can be very easy to get scope creep. It can be very easy to do something that's not aligned with the reason why MEC exists. So our vision is that we help build a safe and inclusive community where all voices are heard and all people have the ability to access the same opportunities. Everyone who lives here. Now, a question we sometimes get around that is, some people have a voice and using that voice to do harm. And you will hear us say often, you will hear me say often, that inclusion has boundaries, and the boundaries are always where your beliefs are executed to do harm to another human being. So, but it doesn't mean, sometimes we get asked, well, I wouldn't be welcome because I have a certain religious belief. That's not true. An inclusive community should have all religious beliefs, or no, people who have any and all religious beliefs or no religious beliefs. Now, if you have a belief that is going to cause harm to someone else for whatever reason, that's where the boundary is. So it's not the belief, it's not the religious belief, but it is where we use our beliefs for whatever belief. There are beliefs that, sometimes we have beliefs that are traditionally considered more progressive and liberal, but we're actually harming people with those also. So, we really want the community where people have a place to belong and have access to the same opportunities. So our mission is to create this inclusive and equitable community by being an example. If we're MEC, whatever, a lot of times people think MEC is the board. We're MEC, we're all MEC, the community is MEC. The board's just an organizational tool to shepherd the work of the community. So being an example for residents and businesses to lead with love, equity, respect, compassion, and justice. Ensuring underserved members and groups have opportunity for their voices to be heard. Encouraging local organizations to be working partnerships with underserved community members and groups. This is our mission. This is what we do. There's so many great things to do here in Monroe. There's so many different ways to build community, but we're going to build community in line with our mission and vision. Is anyone have any questions before I, oops, we're back to Liz. Before I move on there on this? Okay. All right. So if you've been with MEC before, we have three, we call them pillars. There are three focus areas. They're the city, they're the school district. And Kim was like, yeah, I know, Melanie. And it's community. We're really focusing tonight around community. We've done other meetings. We've had the mayor come speak for the city. We've done a lot with the school district and are still doing the school district. But tonight we're really talking about this community pillar. And we build community through three different avenues primarily: community events, community groups, and community outreach. So we're going to talk more about this because remember, MEC is all of us, right? So I want to start with community events. So we already heard that when people who are sitting on this call think about how do we build community, celebrations, having fun, you know, and recognizing and using those as a vehicle to recognize all different types of cultures and you know, different types of identities and so on and so forth that may be different from how I look or you look, or how I think or you think. Those types of things are one thing we want to do. And most of you know, we had our first, Monroe had its first ever Pride last year. It was a smashing success. There were 700 people on the hottest day ever on record. So to get 700 people just for your first ever in Monroe was amazing. But imagine if we got 700 when it was 106, 108 degrees, imagine what it might look like this year. And we've done Juneteenth. I want to say this will be the third year running, Bridget. Is that right? I think it's the third year. And oh, Janelle's back on. Good, Janelle's on. And so Janelle, I'm gonna call on you in a minute if you're available to talk a little bit about Juneteenth. So we have Pride will be on June 12th of this year. Juneteenth will be on June 19th. And so there are volunteers needed in both areas. On Pride, we need a volunteer coordinator, and that is basically coordinating volunteers. An activities coordinator. So we have various activities. So this is going to just help recruit different groups that we could do activities. So for example, we have a local business owner who does a preschool, and so she's going to do an activity station for kids at Pride. And so it will be, you know, finding and sourcing and working to get different according. And then on the day of the event, you'll just be, you know, be their point person the day of the event. A decorations committee. We had a committee last year that made this event look amazing. We need a decorations committee. It's work, but man, it's fun, and they did a great job. Main stage entertainment. It's similar to the activities coordinator. Who's the person who will kind of take in the people who want to do main stage entertainment, you know, schedule out the program, and then be the point person on the day to just kind of make sure it's going well. Cindy last year was our MC and did that role, and she was just amazing. She was so good. And so we'll also need an MC. If you're the main stage entertainment coordinator and you are a good MC and want to do that role too, you could do both. We need a DJ, just someone to, you know, put together a playlist and play the music in the background, work with the main stage person. Juneteenth. So Janelle, I don't know if you're here. But I've put committee members, we need help with setting up and tearing down. We've put out a request already for speakers, demonstration, entertainment. And I'd love Janelle to talk a little more about that. Food vendors. And both, we just need general volunteers as needed. So we're going to run this a little different. On the Pride side, we're going to run it a little differently than last year. We're going to get a list of all volunteers and we're going to say, here's our need. And there's a form down there and I'm going to put it in the chat. You're going to fill out the form. So we're going to start keeping a database of volunteers. The form is really easy. It's simple. It's not that many questions, but it's going to tell us what are the things you're interested in? What are your superpowers? What are your skills? So when we have a volunteer need, we can go to this and then we can call up and say, hey, we need this. Are you available? Can you help for that? Janelle and or Bridget, do either one of you want to say more on Juneteenth?
Hey, it's Janelle here. So really at this point, everything that you put on there is awesome. I mean, last year was, I think me and Bridget did stuff like a month before. I'm a master procrastinator, so I mean, this is good. I've told Bridget before, like for me to celebrate Juneteenth, it's like it's a celebration. That's what it is. Like we celebrate, the true freedom of African Americans. And so, I mean, I am always telling people, you do not have to be African American to celebrate Juneteenth. You do not have to be African American to want to do something, at Juneteenth. Whatever your hands find to do, whatever, is laid upon your heart to be a part of it. If you want to be a part of it, then it's absolutely welcome. We know here in the Monroe community, there's not a lot of African Americans. So I think it speaks volumes to me as an African American in this community when I see people who don't look like me really wanting to step up and really help with the event and just being there to support and just, help wherever. Cindy was amazing last year. Oh my gosh, and she just got right in there and was like, okay, she had everything. Like, it's just amazing. And I truly appreciate her for just doing that because the music made the event, in my opinion. But yeah, that's it for now.
Awesome. Kim, we have a volunteer already. Kim's going to help be on the decorations committee and assist Cindy if she does the music. I'm missing lots of chat, but that's great. I'm also going to put the form in the chat right here. And Kim too, because I will never remember everything in chat. If you wouldn't mind, the form is really easy. That is the form. So if you're interested in either of these events or some of the other things we're going to talk about coming up, if you could fill out this form and let us know. We've got some of the stuff kicked off on both events, but I'm going to be really transparent and honest with you. Those of us on the board, we're tired. We're really, really tired, and we need help. And it's when we talk about building community, when we talk about MECs, all of us, doing the community meetings and the book clubs and the movie nights and the events and the advocacy that we've been doing can't just be done by 5-ish people. We're tired. So, this is me one step short of begging for help. Because we know, and I'll just tell you, these events, both of these events, what we hear is, Janelle was very clear that, this event is for everyone to celebrate. But we also hear, and we hear the same thing from the LGBT community on Pride, like this is an event for all of us to celebrate. And we also hear people who are representative of these communities say, I feel seen. that, you know, we have a group of people who don't look like me, who want to celebrate this, who want to see something that is important or cultural that may be different than what they grew up with. And so, you know, in Pride, I will tell you, there were stories that just, I mean, had me on the floor, you know, kids who said, I can't tell my mom and dad I'm here. Thank you for giving me a safe place to belong. A couple who had moved here during the pandemic, so didn't really know anyone, and they had a lot of signs and stuff in their yard that made, or in their neighborhood, that made them really unsafe, feel unsafe. And they said when they saw that Monroe was having a Pride, they realized they could belong here, and there were people who did love and care for them, and they put out their Pride flag. So these are celebrations, but they're also so important to give places and spaces of belonging. So we need your help so that we can get these done. Okay. Oh, Sarah, I looked up really quick and I see that you can reach out to your volunteer base too. That would be amazing. So I'm going to move on. And again, if you have questions and stuff, and I'm not fully keeping up on the chat right now, please raise your hand, or if someone sees something in chat that I should talk to, please let me know. I also should point out, I meant to put a little note down here that many of these pictures in here were taken by Blue Rowan Photography. I also wanted to get the picture, Janelle, of you with my dog Beck, but it didn't fit well. It kept cutting off in one of these boxes. It's one of my favorite pictures of Janelle snuggling my dog. Okay, so then in the community groups phase, Janelle says that's a good picture, yeah. So to date, we have done one book group, and Janelle stepped up to volunteer and lead that book group. It was great. And in the future, we want to do youth groups and affinity groups. Again, not everything has to be funneled through MEC. So what I mean by that is there is an affinity group going. There is a young LGBTQIA group that spun out of having Pride. So I think it's like 18 to 30 or something like that. And that kind of spun on Pride, and we gave some support to do that. And Bridget, you know, another one of her superpowers is giving. And, you know, she's given pizza and things like that to the group. So there's ways that we can support, but we don't always have to manage everything. But we do really want to get book groups going. And I think this is where you ladies might come in. What we are looking for is someone who'll be a coordinator. And by coordinator, what we mean by that is you don't have to facilitate every group. It's that you'll kind of get a calendar going. Look, we're going to do a book group on these dates and these dates. And then you'll work to get facilitators. You know, you'll look for volunteers like Janelle, who really wanted to do one, and she ended up choosing this book. But you'll be the one to kind of coordinate facilitators, books, and calendar dates. We also need, oh, I say moving night coordinators, but I talk about that in the next slide. So don't worry about that. I forgot to erase it. So if that's something that you're interested in, or if you have other ideas for community groups, where I would say right now, ones that don't require the MEC board to heavily manage, because we don't have that capacity right now, let us know. Fill out a volunteer form. Any questions here? And we will help. You know, you'll have our social media platforms to promote. You know, we can, if you feel like, God, I'd love to do this, but I've never done a book club before, like some of us have, we can help you figure out, you know, what does it look like to have a book club, you know, that type of thing. So
how often was the previous one, or is it like a weekly or a monthly, or kind of
so on this one, yeah, and this one we ended up, Janelle.
And I was like, can I chime in real quick?
Yeah, please do.
So I'm just going to be 100% honest. I absolutely love this book, and how far we got, but my life as a mother of 8 and working full time just like really got in the way of us completing this book talk. I think we got to what chapter, I want to say chapter 9 maybe, or 7. So that like I apologize for that, because I really feel that this book is like very beneficial to those who, you know, really want to know more about the race issues in the world today. But yeah, we did it like every 2 weeks, which it worked out good. You know, we had at least 5 people on each one, and it was just,
Oh, we lost you. Let's see if she comes back. Yeah, so and that one we didn't fully, one thing we learned is that we would plan out so many chapters, but the discussion,
I think the intention is important.
yeah,
You know, that's
the-
what you
yeah.
tried, paper effort.
So you'll want to maybe have some time to buffers, so that if the discussion is such that it's deep and all of that, then you want to add another week or something like that, you have the ability to do that.
So do like, how is everyone feeling about doing things like via Zoom or in person? Like if they're vaccinated or if they wear masks, because it is, I understand like being safe, but I know that I would love to be in the same room with everybody right now. Like I would love to meet everybody in person, and just how nice it is to have in-person meetings, though it's obviously way less convenient because you can't just do it anywhere. But how are people feeling about that? And like, what is sort of the expectations? Is it just Zoom meetings, or?
Can I chime in on that?
Mhm.
It's both. It's both. So some of our board meetings are on Zoom. Sometimes they're in my office. The movie nights, even though COVID was you know, still kind of at its higher impact than the movies, obviously we're still in person at the movie theater. The movie theater had rules and we followed those rules. But Zoom is fine for a lot of things besides just COVID. I just wanted to say that for some people, Zoom makes it very easy to attend. You can literally sign on at 6:10 or, you know, 5:59 or whatever. So hybrids are also good too. And people seem to like the hybrid option a lot. So I own a space in downtown Monroe, and I would be happy to have people come and do a little book club there if they wanted to. I know the movie theater is going to be a location that we can use for specifically our movie event, but they have a huge lobby too. The whole dance party idea was kind of, I was thinking about that movie theater lobby when they were talking about that. There are a lot of restaurants in Monroe that I know a lot of people are acting like COVID's over, but a lot of restaurants and businesses are really struggling this year in 2022 worse than in other years, and would probably be really open to like a real estate office, or I'm thinking of a lot of the service offices on Main Street would be open to having a group of 5 or 6 people, you know, being in that space and being the host for a book club or a conversation or a knitting group or a game night or whatever. So as far as this board goes, there's no expectation for you to be on Zoom or in person. Any or both or combinations, you know, are great. And I think so many people hear the same thing that you're saying, and that is, we would love to get together if we feel safe getting together. And so however we can help facilitate that, I'll help facilitate that. If you want in-person stuff, like get a hold of me. I put my phone number in the chat too, but feel free to text me if there's something that you want to do. That's not going to be more than, like Janelle said, I think it was 5 or 6 people showing up. You know, everybody has busy lives and stuff too, and we're all on Zoom and having meetings so much that having just a goal of getting 5 or 6 people together is awesome. And we can definitely help with that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Here's some things I would think through as you're doing it. One, different events lend themselves differently to whether it's Zoom or whether it's in person. If we're doing in person, obviously we deeply respect anybody who is still taking precautions with masks or asked to be seated a little bit differently. I mean, not differently, spaciously. So we deeply want to respect where people are at with that. If the for whatever reason the county or the state does have to go back and implement mandates because there's a big surge away, we will respect those. That is one thing, is we do respect whatever the current mandate or guidance is. And then it would be, talking to the people who are interested. In summer, it's also easy to meet at a park or meet outside. I would also say that I've had some feedback from a couple of people who are neurodivergent. Zoom is really hard for them from a perspective of that, but from concentrating. I also apologize. I have long COVID and my losing words and losing focus sometimes. So I'm experiencing some of this. I understand this now, but if I'm not being super clear tonight, please let me know so I can be more clear. And so, and it doesn't have to be the same. One book you could do Zoom, the next time you could do in person. There's just a lot of ways to do it. So I just go in with, how do we be inclusive? How do we accommodate to the best we can possible to be inclusive, and know that there's just lots of options and we can support.
Yeah, there could be several, like specifically with book clubs, there could be several groups, and one could be a masked group for people who feel the most comfortable with a mask. That's what I'm saying. Get 5 or 6 people together. There could be, so many different ways to make it work so that everyone feels comfortable.
Yeah. I'm gonna move on, or if we don't have another question.
I would just really quickly chime in and say, representing the immunocompromised community, I really appreciate all that. And I am now more willing to meet in person. We can always wear a mask and stay social distance, we've all been vaccinated, thankfully, now that that's available to everyone. So I think as long as everyone's okay with, the protections in place still, I'd love to meet in person. But again, if things happen and we do decide to meet virtually, that's great too.
Awesome. And I appreciate that as well, because I'm also immune compromised, which is part of the reason long COVID has really kicked me in the butt. And so, but, I think there's a number of ways we can accommodate. We also, we recognize both that there's still a need to protect people who are vulnerable, and there's a lot of mental health needs that people need to connect to. So we're going to work to connect both. And, probably this community meeting, I think one of the things I've thought about, I haven't talked about it to the board yet, so is, we probably should get to the point, particularly with summer coming up, that maybe like our June last meeting of the year, we do a potluck or something together. But when it comes to a larger audience, we might get more attendance on Zoom than we would. We're working through the same question. We'll all come together and figure it out. And to anyone, if someone's missing the boat, part of being a community, as Liz brought up to us, is, talking through that conflict, and so we all see the world through different views and different eyes and all of that. So if something's not working, let us know. Let's try and work through it together as a community. Okay. I'm going to keep moving in the interest of time. Okay, and then the third bucket of community is community outreach. So we do that with these meetings, our social media, our website, and movie nights. So our biggest volunteer needs in this right now, we want to hear from you. We want community meeting topics and speakers. If you want to speak, you have something. I would say there's areas I feel we haven't got as deep in that I'd love to, things about, I think more around disability awareness and education is I think some time we need to invest in that we haven't done as much around that. The Indigenous community, as I said earlier, I mean, there's lots of places and spaces that we haven't explored to learn and grow together. This is an area that you're part of that community. This is part of your lived experience, or you have connections that you want to bring in as a speaker for a topic. Let us know, email us, tell us these things. We are a community, and we want to bring people in, and we want to showcase so many different people's areas of passion and expertise and all of that good stuff. Social media guest posts. This is another one. You've seen this before. We've had people from our community. During Pride, we did Pride profiles where people told their stories. But we've also had people come in sometimes throughout the year. We had a post from Bridget, not this Bridget, another Bridget in our community, who is part of the AAPI community, who was experiencing some pretty awful racism, and she shared her story. It could be an educational post. It could be a celebration post. You have a guest post idea? Send it to us. You see an article that you think would be great to share with the broader community, send it to us. This is a community effort. And then the other big need we have is movie nights. So Bridget referenced it earlier. You can see it in the top right corner of the collage. So we were doing, it was the first Sunday of every month, right, Bridget? Yeah. And
and it's free.
And it's free to the community, and they were popular, and we says movies with meaning, but they weren't necessarily all like deep documentaries or something like that. It was more about just bringing different, representation and experiences. We had, oh gosh, we had the movie.
I did On the Basis of Sex, which was the Ruth Bader Ginsburg movie. That was really good. And then I shifted to focusing on movies for all ages. And so like we did Inside Out during Mental Health Awareness Month. Akilah and the Bee was going to be my next one. But now I'm spacing out on one of them too. I bought a whole bunch of movies. I bought Soul. It was a lot of stuff. My thinking was that there's a lot of things there's hard educational things to learn. We all have access to podcasts and books and whatever, but we also wanted to, Moana. Thank you, Sarah. Moana was great. I can't remember which month we had done that for, but I think it was AAPI focus month. But the idea was just, to make it really open for anyone to be able to come. You can bring your kids, bring your friends, bring whatever. It's it is a safe movie. And it didn't have to be Pixar. That's just kind of like Disney was, where we went at the very beginning, trying to draw a bigger crowd in so that people could meet each other and get to know each other and have more opportunity for connection. So I really liked that, doing that movie night. We had the movie theater manager was part of MEC, and but she moved away, and then the Galaxy Theater has been going through a really big management shift. And so I just don't have the bandwidth to hunt down whoever has ended up being the new manager and kind of re-spark this again. They said they were interested, but every time I was there was a different person in charge because of their reorganization. So it's a pretty it's a pretty low commitment. And I'm happy to buy the movies, bring the movies, meet you or whatever. I just need someone who's willing to make the phone call and make the connect with the theater and make that happen. Sorry, Melanie, I got on a tangent a little bit, but it was super fun and I loved going. It was just there. I have a lot that I do and I just didn't have the bandwidth for it.
Yep. So again, we put the volunteer link in there. If that's something you're interested in, fill out the form, it'll come to me. And we have about 10 more minutes, so let me scroll. So other opportunities, we need to grow our board. An organization like this that is all volunteer means that a board is a working board. It's an all volunteer board that has to do some of the work and the lifting and the volunteering. And we need to expand our board, and we need to expand the diversity of our board. And I mean that in all different ways. We need to, we need representation from a number of different ways. We need racial diversity. We need disability representation. We need gender diversity. We've been very, very heavy on women. So in this case, we need some men, and we need, obviously LGBTQIA. We need people of different strengths and skills. We have organizers, we have creatives, we need all of this. And so we really, really would love, if you have a passion and a heart for being part of leadership. This is a different, I'm going to put in a different link for you. Is our board application. And so I'm going to put this right here. And just to give you an idea, we meet, if you're going to be on the board, the minimum commitment is that you attend these meetings monthly. We meet as a board monthly so these meetings are the first Wednesday of the month. Our board meetings are the second Wednesday of the month. And then you help organize or volunteer at the events that we have. And then each one of us tends to volunteer or kind of have a little bit of a lean in or focus on a particular pillar, the city, the community, or the school. And we all do a little bit in community just because there's a lot to do there. And then secondly, we are going to be hiring. We have been blessed with a grant. This is going to be a part-time contract position. And we are going to start with, and by part-time, we want to be very clear and transparent that not every week of the year is there going to be the set amount of hours and the set amount. This is more, we effectively need a program type assistant. So during the event time of June, when we have 2 big events, we're going to need somebody to have the flexibility to put in some more hours leading up to it, and then in the events to help us, get the events off and running. During other times of the year, it might be a little more administrative and helping us coordinate certain things, maybe managing the volunteer database, that type of thing. So if you are, you do a good job with being given a task and being able to execute on it, if you do a good job of, having some leadership, if you've got to manage some people through a task, that would be a really great potential position for you. And we will be posting that within the next couple of days, sometimes this week. You'll see it on our Facebook, Instagram, and website. So we have about 5 minutes left. Are there any questions, or Bridget, is there anything You're muted.
No, I know. I was yelling at the boys that are watching a soccer game right now, and they're like really loud. Yeah, this isn't necessarily a board position. This is a Bridget position. I've been on a lot of committees and boards at City Hall for a long time, and we see people always saying, you should do this, you should do that, you should make this happen. And I always respond with, this is a we conversation, not a you or me conversation. Melanie said earlier, and I just want to reiterate that we are all of us that are here at this meeting is Monroe, is about Monroe equity. And it's too much for a small new board of people to try to make everything happen. And so I think, I would straightforwardly say, if you think MEC should do a book club, then you should start a book club. If you think MEC should show a movie, then you should, reach out and figure out how to make that happen with us together. Melanie takes responsibility for a lot of the higher level stuff, letter writing and the Facebook posts and putting the Zoom together. I have responsibilities that I do too, but making things happen is for everybody to make happen. This isn't about 2 to 5 to 7 to 11 people leading a charge. This is a community thing. And I just want to clearly state that every single person here tonight is welcome and needed and invited and asked to bring your ideas and your thoughts and your gifts and talents to the table and say, hey, I want to do this thing, not I want you to do this thing, and I want to help make it happen. We need leaders here in Monroe. We need leaders, and we need a leadership core of people. And let's bring our superpowers. Thank you, Kelsey and Natalie. Like, bring your superpowers to the table. Melanie is not in charge. I'm not in charge. Peggy's not in charge. Janelle's not in charge. We are all in charge of making this community better and elevating together. So that's my ask. Like, I love doing the movie night, but if that's not an interest, then we're going to let that fall by the wayside and move on to the next thing. And, if you want to see books and movies and talks and speakers and you're connected to people, bring them. We will help promote, we will help support, we will help financially, as long as the things are in line with our mission and vision statement. You're part of this thing, and we need you to be part of this thing. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Any last?
Okay. Hey, I want to just say one other thing.
Oh, yeah.
As far as community goes, we had a little situation at my restaurant many months ago with some this protesting. It's a political side of it, but the beautiful thing about this community here is, like, people got wind that something negative was going to happen, and a lot of people here on this call right now made sure that the staff and the business was a safe space for positivity. And so something that's what building community is about. Sarah, I can see your face. There's a lot of people who don't have their cameras on right now that were part of that too. But that's what you can expect when you team up with people in this group, is like, you're going through a rough time or something bad happens, or, things are going on in your life. The people here are going to show up for you. And that's part of that community building. So Mary Ruley brought flowers one day. She said, I was reading a Facebook post that you made. I didn't even know her, but I was reading a Facebook post that you made, and I just wanted to bring flowers for your staff because I know this mask mandate's been hard for them. That's what we're here for. And yeah, that's all. Okay, I'm done now.
It was a good ad. It was a good encore. All right. Anyone have last minute thoughts, comments, questions before we go? Okay. So I close this meeting with gratitude for showing up, because that is the first part of building community, and you've shown up. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I appreciate your patience as I work through my brain to do meetings like this, especially at the end of the day. It gets harder. So I appreciate your grace and your patience. And I appreciate your superpowers, and I'm so looking forward to what we can come up with and do together. So have a good night. We will be in touch, and talk soon.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
It's great to meet everyone.